What's up, guys? This is the Talkin The Star podcast. I'm your host, Connor Livesay, here with my co-host tonight, Cole Patterson. Dalton Miller could not be with us tonight, but we will see him again next week. We have a lot to talk about today, and we are going to spend a lot of the time previewing the Cowboys' Thanksgiving Day game against the Washington football team. This is a second meeting between those two teams this year. The first one did not go great for the Cowboys, so we are hoping that they are going to have a much better performance in Week 12 than they did earlier in the year. Before we get started, Cole, how you doing, bro?
Yeah, doing pretty well. I can't really complain too much. You know, I know mu all three of us really have, kind of cheered for, draft pick and all of that. But I mean, still at the end of the day, as a fan, it's always nice to see a win.
Sure.
So it was pretty cool, especially it's been so long to see the Cowboys come out victorious. So it gives us something different to talk about for once.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I think we kind of talked real positive about the Cowboys' chances of making the playoffs last podcast.
Mhm.
And I think we kind of closed that podcast with if they want that opportunity, they're going to have to win this week. Like they're going to have to
Exactly.
pull out one of these wins
Hmm.
that no one really expects them to win. And I feel like
Yep.
that's what they did. Because I mean, I don't think you could lose against the Vikings, and then go expect to beat the Ravens. You might beat
Exactly.
the football team, you might beat the
Mhm.
Eagles, you might beat the Giants.
Yeah.
But if you really want to be, no one's going to take you seriously. But if you at
Mhm.
least, I was kind of thinking about it the other day. This is probably the best win that anyone in the NFC East has had.
Which isn't
So
saying a ton, but yeah.
no, right. It's not like anybody beat, the Chiefs or anything, but
Yeah.
it's still probably the best win that anyone in the East has had. So you know, it gives them a chance, and I think that's kind of what we were talking about last week, that if they want a chance at doing it, it's gonna have to start with the win against Minnesota, and they did that. Now they're gonna have to get it back together, and welcome the football team into their house and hopefully have a much better performance than they did last time these two teams saw each other.
Yeah, I mean, I guess all it really took for them to win was us to finally, start talking positively. We've all, kind of talked about we went the draft pick. Like you said, it's the first time we started talking about, hey, do they have a chance at the playoffs? They go out and beat the Vikings on the road. Um, I,
And I guess my thing is like I hope people don't take this as me being negative, but I think the Cowboys, even with all of their issues, matched up well with the Vikings.
yeah,
They had been playing the run a whole lot better, like they had been stopping the run a whole lot better.
yeah,
They don't have the corners to match up with Minnesota's receivers, but the Minnesota Vikings don't throw the ball a ton until they have
exactly.
to. So
Hmm.
like that's what gave me hope going into that game, is that if there's a team that the Cowboys match it, like they don't have a good defensive line,
Yeah,
they don't have a good secondary. So like the defensive line was never going to create but so much pressure because half the people in the world don't even know a single person that plays on that defensive line. So
exactly.
like the real test I think is going to be this week, where I think the football team, excuse me, give the Cowboys a lot more issues with their matchups with Chase Young and
Yeah.
Daron Payne and Montez Sweat and
Hmm.
Ryan Kerrigan.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, the Jonathan Allen, the list goes on and on.
They
So
give
like,
everybody problems.
right,
So,
we think that this offensive line is fixed because they moved Zach Martin to right tackle, but that
they find out
interior that
Thursday.
interior has to go up against Jonathan Allen, Daron
Yeah.
Payne, Chase Young, all those guys, and
Mhm.
it's gonna be a lot tougher. And I think we saw that in the first matchup. But I want to talk a little bit about this game before we get into predictions and what we think is going to happen and all that. But what did you think, and what can you see going forward to believe that Andy Dalton can give this team a chance to win the division and then possibly even give them a chance in the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, he looked really impressive on Sunday. As you mentioned, the Vikings don't have this elite defense that Mike Zimmer teams usually have. They don't really have any guy that you're scared of rushing the passer. Their secondary has a lot of rookies in it. They can get picked on a lot. Dantzler and Gladney have had their struggles this season in year one. Um, so, like you said, it's not like they're going up against an elite defense or anything like that. But it was still nice to see Andy Dalton, especially after how he played against Washington, to see him be able to, hey, this guy can start games in the NFL. He's a functional NFL quarterback. In my opinion, he looked more decisive on Sunday. He looked like he knew where he wanted to go with the football. Obviously, he had that one interception. Um, But he was finding CD Lamb. He was finding Amari Cooper. I mean, obviously Amari Cooper is one of the best at getting open, and CD Lamb is turning into a freak more and more each week. So that certainly helps. But yeah, I mean, I know Garrett Gilbert performed pretty well against Pittsburgh, but for the most part, the Cowboys quarterbacks have been a dumpster fire since Dak went down. So it's finally good to see, in a road game environment. I know the fans aren't there and all that, but still on the road, and he was able to pull out a win. He had a good game-winning drive to kind of get the Cowboys over the hump. And yeah, I mean, for me, it was more of him. He wasn't scared going with the football. Like you said, a part of that. We'll see how that goes when he has Montez Sweat and Chase Young down his throat. But for the most part, yeah, he looked more decisive. He looked where he looked like he wanted to know, or excuse me, he looked like he knew where he wanted to go with the football, and he wasn't second guessing himself. He didn't make any, in my opinion, spectacular plays or anything. Even the CD Lamb play wasn't a great throw. The Ezekiel Elliott throw was really just a swing pass. It wasn't anything spectacular, right. But the main takeaway was that he looked like a functional quarterback, and that's really all you can ask for, especially, after watching Ben DiNucci and Dalton himself against Washington.
Yeah, and I think another favorable matchup from an offense is this coming up week with the football team, because they just don't have anyone that scare. Terry McLaurin, I think, is a top 10 receiver in the league.
Playing really well.
Probably easily a top 10 receiver in the league now if you really sat down and looked at him. But just, I don't trust Alex Smith to get him the quarterback. The times I've watched Alex Smith, I'll spend a lot of my time tomorrow really diving into the game film of Washington. But Alex Smith, he'll probably win Comeback Player of the Year this year because of the story, because of the situation, and because, Washington has a chance to win the division too.
Yeah.
But I just don't think he's played well. He is not the mobile quarterback that he used to be, and rightfully so. I mean, he's not going to be getting out of the pocket, but so much when he had such a nasty injury to a leg taking a hit. So he's probably going to be a little bit more conservative in that area of his game. And I think that, your defense, like they gave up 25 last time they played Washington. But I think this defense has gotten better since then for sure. Obviously Trayvon Diggs went down, but I think Leighton Vander Esch, though I've been very critical of Leighton Vander Esch the last 2 weeks, he's played tremendously, I think.
Yes, yeah.
Done a whole lot better. This defensive line, I think, has played so much better since the departure of Dontari Poe and Everson Griffin. I think, when you look at the matchups from the Cowboys defense to the Washington offense going into this game, you feel like the Cowboys defense, and this is probably the first time you're going to be able to say this, the first time I definitely say this, you feel like the Cowboys defense is going to give this team a chance to win on Thursday in Dallas against the football team, and really would give them, Philadelphia has a chance. They're hanging on as well. The Giants still fighting, but I think if you pull off a division win this week, you go to 4-7. You're really in the driver's seat at that point, because Philly's just not showing signs of life. If anything, they're probably getting worse, especially on the offensive side of the ball each week. Obviously, if you can pull off a victory against the football team, that puts you in a positive spot in front of them. And then the Giants, I just expect Daniel Jones to fail. That's like he'll start off and look great in the first quarter, and then just as the game progresses, the more he fills up his pants with manure, because that dude is the king of crapping his pants, and he is going to crap his pants a lot. So, and they have a pretty tough schedule coming up. So,
speaking of Daniel Jones, you see that Gil Brandt tweet of all the quarterbacks who you would start franchise with for next 10 years, I think it was 8 years, something like that.
I didn't see it. No.
He threw in Dak, Deshaun, Kyler, Josh Allen, Lamar, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, all these guys, and he threw in Daniel Jones in there. We wouldn't notice. Everybody's like, why did he throw Jones in there?
Yeah, it's like his Terrence Steele tweet from a couple weeks ago.
Come on. But I don't. It's hard to really trust Daniel Jones. It's a guy you don't really have any faith. I know Carson Wentz is playing worse and worse every single week, but
they were talking about it on the radio today, ranking the NFC East, quarterbacks 1 through 4, and I mean, realistically, Carson Wentz is 4th, and the other 3 you might as well shake them up and throw them out.
Who's your number 1? Is it Dalton, or you going with Alex Smith?
I mean, honestly, like I don't think he's good, but I'll probably put Daniel Jones first.
Which kind
And
of
again, I
really
don't
says
think
more about the
he's
NFC East quarterback.
any
Yeah,
good, like
yeah,
at all. But I think Daniel Jones has got Jason Garrett as his play caller. Like, who's his number one receiver?
mhm,
Like if I'm just evaluating the quarterback, like
yeah,
I feel like the fact that the Giants even are in it right now with what they have on offense, with their offensive line not being great, Saquon Barkley, even
mhm,
though I don't think the running back matters that
yeah,
much, like your Wayne Gallman and Dion Lewis are your starting running backs, and
yeah.
Golden Tate and Darius Slayton are your two best. Sterling Shepard's been up and down, so it's like
Like he doesn't have a ton to work with.
right.
Yeah,
So and again, like don't think he's very good at all,
yeah.
but I think I would probably go Daniel Jones, Andy Dalton, Alex Smith, Carson Wentz right now, which is pretty insane because I mean, even though
Do
I
you?
hate the Philadelphia Eagles, like I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible when
Me
doing
too.
this.
Yeah.
So
Like I've obviously always favored Dak and the Dak Wentz, Dak Wentz golf, whatever debates, but I didn't think Wentz was ever going to regress this bad. Like
right.
it's almost like I saw a tweet. I want to say it's from a scout or evaluate somebody. I saw it on Twitter where somebody was like, "Yeah, he's like Mitchell Trubisky level right now," and it's like this kind of
Probably worse.
yeah, and it's like horrible. Like just to see, like, I mean, I know we're not supposed to like the Eagles or anything, but it's just crazy to see his fall from like, MVP candidate, him and Dak. That was like a legitimate debate. Now it's like you said, he's behind Daniel Jones, Alex Smith, and Andy Dalton in the NFC East.
Right.
Do you think they, not to get off too far off topic, but do you think they give Hurts a chance before the end of the year, or do you think they stick it out with Carson?
I mean, I think you're gonna get to the point where you're gonna have to
Yeah,
because how
especially
can
if they
that
lose this
team,
week. Yeah,
right? Like, how can that team just keep, because that defense is good. I mean, like,
they got some players.
people always are like, oh, the secondary is trash, but like,
Slay's playing
they
pretty.
had the Browns on the ropes
Yeah.
for most of that game until, Nick Chubb broke off a couple big
Yeah,
runs, but
a
like,
competent quarterback, they win that game more
right.
than
Nick
likely.
Chubb was like not doing a whole lot on the
Hmm.
ground, and they had a few big plays, but Baker missed a few touchdowns. But like that defense has played well for them,
Yeah.
giving them multiple opportunities to win
Mm.
football games. And the quarterback just, I mean, again, like
Not
when
giving
you
them a
throw,
chance.
yeah, he's just not giving them a chance, and that's the best way to say it. But Cowboys will get to go up against one of those quarterbacks in the NFC East this coming Thursday on Thanksgiving. We're going to talk about that after a break. We'll be right back. We are talking the Star. And we're back on the Talkin the Star podcast. I'm your host, Connor Livesay, here with my co host tonight, Cole Patterson. Give us a follow on Twitter at Connor NFL Draft and at Cole L. Patterson. Dalton Miller not with us tonight, but you can follow him on Twitter as well at Dalton B. Miller. Always want to give a big shout out to Blogging the Boys, SB Nation, Vox Media for allowing us to host the podcast. Do us all a favor, whatever podcast platform you listen on, search Blogging the Boys, hit that subscribe button, and get a ton of different voices, a ton of different opinions from everyone over at Blogging the Boys. You won't regret it. I promise you. You get a
Yeah,
ton of different voices and a ton of different shows for absolutely free. So
sure.
if you're looking for Cowboys content, we can help provide that for you. But let's dive into this Turkey Day game. It's always seems like in the past few years, this game's like been meaningless. I feel like for either meaningless or like just
Yeah.
it was the Chargers a few years ago, where they just
That game was
crushed.
ugly. Yeah.
I can't even remember who it was. Was it Washington last year that
Buffalo.
Buffalo? Yeah,
Uh,
Buffalo crushed us
mhm.
last year. Like it's been
Yeah.
ugly here
It's been
recently.
ugly. Yeah.
And this
But
is
they've
just
had
another.
success against Washington on Thanksgiving. I mean, it's a
They
good win.
they have, yeah, they have. That is true. But Alex Smith, the starter now in Washington. We obviously had Kyle Allen last time we saw them. I know a lot of people are down on Kyle Allen, but I thought he did a pretty decent job coming in for Dwayne Haskins. I mean, not going to set the world on fire, but I think he had a few games with Washington similar to how he did with Carolina a few years ago, where he came in, won 3 or 4 games, and it was kind of like, are we going to stick with Kyle Allen or is Cam Newton the guy?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
And I think, he played well. He threw for 194 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game, looked really good. Antonio Gibson was probably the reason,
Yeah.
the defense was the reason they won, but on offense, Antonio Gibson
Yeah.
carried the ball 20 times for 126 yards and a touchdown. From a defensive side of the ball perspective, what does this defense need to do to come out victorious against the Washington football team?
Yeah, kind of like we said earlier, they don't really have a lot of offensive personnel that really scares you in any way. Obviously, McLaurin is one of the best receivers in the league, and I really like Gibson coming out, and he's kind of proven that this year that he's a guy that can get into the end zone. He might not be the best running back in the league or anything crazy, but he's a guy. He got scored against Dallas. He's playing pretty well as of late too. Those are the two guys that they obviously need to key on because they really don't have anybody else that you're like, whoa, that guy's going to beat us if we take him out.
They're
Especially
starting
with
tight ends, a former quarterback.
yeah. So I mean, they don't. There's not a lot of options for Alex Smith to go to, but yeah, I think it's. I mean, I don't know. If there's one specific thing that they need to do because, like you said, they've gotten so much better. I know it's all relative because they're so terrible the last time these two teams played, but still, they've gotten a lot better since then. I think it does come down to if their run defense can continue to be steady and continue to make it hard because I mean Alex Smith, like you said, the story is inspirational and everything, but he's not a guy that's going to beat you. It does work. Our secondary does worry me, especially without Trayvon Diggs. I mean, I know saying that Trayvon Diggs did give up that touchdown at McLaurin the last time, but still, I'd feel much more confident if he was out there to at least throw it. McLaurin, at least have him out there in the secondary. So I'm always scared that McLaurin's going to break a deep one. But I really think it just comes down to if they can win the trenches and I obviously don't think they're going to win the trenches on the other side of the ball, but if they can win the trenches on defense, I think they'll go a long way in getting a win.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the thing with Alex Smith is you almost got to force him to beat you.
Exactly.
Now that's kind of what the team did last week
Kirk Cousins.
with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins got his, but it just couldn't. I think they knew going into that game that they weren't going to throw the ball enough to where
Yeah.
they could beat them early and then stay on top of them with the passing game. They knew they were going to stay dedicated to the run because that's the way Minnesota plays.
Yeah.
And you almost have to treat the Washington football team the same way, I think. I
Yeah.
think you have to choke the run. Don't let Antonio Gibson go for 128 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
Limit his impact. And
Mhm.
then on third downs, when it gets in those obvious passing game situations, I wouldn't mind seeing them bracket Terry McLaurin and force
Mhm.
Alex Smith to go to, Logan Thomas or
Exactly.
Steven Sims or
Mhm.
I mean again, the rest of those receivers are just no name
Nobody's.
guys. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
force a bad quarterback to throw the ball to
Bad
bad
receivers.
receivers. I
And
mean,
you
again,
should
it
be fine.
sounds so simple,
Mhm.
but in my opinion, I think early downs you really set up to choke the run,
Mhm.
force them to throw the ball, and if they beat if Terry McLaurin goes for 90 yards again, and a
Kick their ass.
touchdown even, I
Yeah.
feel like you got a chance with the way this offensive
Yeah.
line should play and with these receivers. I mean, again, that last game was just so bad. I mean, it
So
was
ugly. Yeah.
like
Everything went
offensively,
wrong. Yeah.
right. It like the score
Quarterback
was
got taken out. Like
right.
everything.
It was just terrible. So I think you're going to play better than you did last time, and I think the best way for you to do that is to just not let Antonio Gibson run for 128 yards and a touchdown. Like that, I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
And again, I'm one who says running the ball matters, but the running back doesn't matter. And I think
Mm.
the Washington football team kind of gives a good example of that because,
Yeah.
the casual football fan probably has no clue where Antonio Gibson came from, who he
Exactly.
is, but he can, if you let him, if you don't stop him
We'll make you
and
pay.
the offensive line blocks, you're
Mhm.
screwed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
that's the
true.
case with every
Mhm.
team in the NFL, no matter if it's Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott, or
Wayne Gallman.
Wayne Gallman and Antonio Gibson and
Yeah. Boston
Michael.
Scott.
Right, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, like I said, I mean, I think if you can force if you can force Alex Smith to be the one to beat you in this game, you probably set yourself up for success.
Mhm.
But on the offensive side of the ball, obviously it was disastrous last time these two teams played. Only 3 points. Andy Dalton was not good, and then he was concussed late in the game. Um, what can they do differently on offense this week to not have it turn out the same way it did last time?
Yeah. I mean, really, they need everything to go opposite of what happened last time, plain and simple. But yeah, um, I just really hope they don't try to rely on the run game on early downs because against this specific defense,
Right.
especially, um, you can make a strong argument that Washington, if they don't have the best front seven in the NFL, it's always up there. I mean, their front four is really good. They got two elite pass rushers that are coming on strong. Their interior is really good. It's just going to make it like hard for passing and rushing the ball, but especially rushing this because you don't have your obviously full five guys healthy. You got Zach Martin playing a different position. Granted, he's still Zach Martin, still really good, but I don't think you can rely on running the ball early, especially in this game. I know that's not a strategy for any game, but I think it's more important against Washington if you're trying to get that win, just because of the personnel differences between the two sides of the line. So I think it really just comes down to Andy Dalton, being able to get the ball out quick. Whether that's to Amari Cooper, if it's trying to get CD Lamb more involved. Dalton Schultz is coming on strong lately as well. I think he has to really prove that he can get. I'm not asking him for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns or anything, but he has to be decisive. I think in that Washington game, he was kind of scared, gun shy at least, seeing all these Washington dudes coming at him. I mean, I probably would be too, to be honest, but you can't be that. You can't do that as an NFL quarterback. He was hesitant. He didn't know where to go with the football. Maybe the Minnesota game gave him some confidence that, hey, I started in this league for a long time. I have dudes at wide receiver. Dalton Schultz is a guy that I can trust. So I think it really just comes down to how he performs, which might be a bailout. I mean, quarterback play usually has a strong correlation to winning and losing games. But I think it really truly does just come down to how he plays as far as getting the ball out quick and not holding onto the football and letting Chase Young and Montez Sweat live in the backfield and keep hitting him like they did last time.
Yeah, what terrifies me is that this team's going to come out and run the ball a lot because they were successful doing it last week, and not realizing that Jaleel Johnson is the best player on the Minnesota defense, but would be the 7th best player on the Washington defense, and that's what scares me is that they'll come out and try to have that same game plan. And again, like the running game did work last week for the Cowboys against the Vikings, but the passing game was there too when it needed to be. It wasn't always pretty, but when they could hit CD for 20-some yards on the corner route, and they could hit, Amari Cooper on some of those big slants across the middle, and Dalton Schultz, and they had Michael Gallup a few times. Obviously he had a few drops as well, but he had another big play or two as well. So I feel like you said, like I think the biggest thing for this team is going to be and again, I can't believe I'm saying this, but like getting the ball to Dalton Schultz on first down for it. It seems like Dalton Schultz is open on every single option route that he runs on. I mean, like it's the easiest 8 yards in the world. Just don't throw the ball into the ground or over his head, and it's like he's wide open. And he's become a very good route runner, like a guy who can set defenders up at that mesh point. When he has those option routes called, he's able to always make the right decision. Like he's become a real weapon in the receiving game.
We were really worried when Jarwin went down, but he's really stepped up in a huge way.
Yeah, no, for sure, and he blocked really well last week. So, I think you'll have success running the football at certain times against the football team. But I think the most important thing is you can't rely on it to be what you live and die on. Because you will punt a ton. You will force your injured kick a bunch of long field goals, and that should be what you want to stay away from. Again, I don't think Andy Dalton's a great quarterback. I don't think he might not even be a good quarterback. I think what you said, if he can play to that functional level to where he's just not killing you every time he drops back, not pulling a Ryan Finley on you, because that's, again, as much as I think Andy Dalton could be and should be better than he is, watching guys like Ryan Finley come in and like just absolutely have no clue what's going on. Yeah, it's just it's I tweeted it out last week, but it's just hilarious to me how bad backup quarterbacks are.
Yeah.
Like, I know you're a backup for a reason, but it's like you've played this position since you were probably 11 years old.
A lot of them are getting paid millions of dollars. It's like they don't know how to
played at a high college level. Like, you obviously played at that level enough to where an NFL team was like, let's give this guy a chance. And then they get into the game, and you would think that they had never seen the field before. So it's just
wild.
Yeah. And I mean, again, the Washington secondary has played a whole lot better than I think a lot of people thought it was this year because they don't have, Kenneth Fuller, Jimmy
Yeah, big name
Moreland,
guys. Yeah.
no big name
Yeah.
guys, but they do a pretty solid job on the back end. A lot of that's probably thanks to the guys on the front end.
Yeah.
Um,
Makes it
but
easier.
but they do their job on the back end. So
Do
I
you
think
think,
it's
I didn't mean to interrupt, but do you think not having Landon Collins at all? I mean, I know he isn't the same player as he was in New York. Do you think that changes anything in this
I mean,
matchup, or do you think it's
Troy Apke is not good at all.
yeah,
I don't think Landon Collins is some world beater by any means. I
yeah?
think he's a solid,
No, I'm on
box
the same
safe.
page with you. I
Right.
said no.
So I mean, I
If
think there's a definite downgrade there from the guy they faced last time they saw this team. Which that's good. Like get Dalton Schultz manned up on
yeah,
Troy Apke. Get Tony Pollard and your slot guys lined up on that guy if you can. I mean, most of the time they're when you got three receivers on the field, the Washington defense is going to be in nickel too. So it's not like
yeah,
you're going to have linebackers on your receivers or anything like that. But if there's an opportunity for you to motion Tony Pollard out into the slot and have Troy Apke or a linebacker on him, like let's take advantage of that matchup. And,
yeah,
and I think that could be a big because Kellen Moore called a fantastic game last week. And I
he
think if he
did.
can do the same thing, and again, he was probably a little more run heavy than I wanted them to be, but
Mm,
they were running it semi effectively. But when they needed to draw up a good play, when they needed to do some things and put some wrinkles in the running game to give Tony Pollard a big runway or to give Ezekiel Elliott an easy 4 or 5 yards. They were able to do that. So if he similar game that he had last week against the Vikings, I think this offense will be good, and I think this team's got a chance to win for sure.
no, I agree. I agree.
So let's go ahead and give our predictions for this game. We normally don't do this because we're kind of in the middle of the week and there's so much time, to go until we
Hmm.
but we're actually going to do this 2 weeks in a row because we have the Ravens next week on
Mm,
Thursday night
yeah.
as well. So we are going to give predictions today. I'll start with you though, Cole. What
Mm.
is your game predictions?
Man, I could really see this going any way or either way. Do you think Dallas has improved since the last time these two teams matched up? But as you kind of said earlier, I think Washington presents a much more difficult challenge than Minnesota did. At the end of the day, I think that defense is just too much for Dallas to really overcome. I think that front seven, or especially that D line, kind of owns the line of scrimmage and doesn't allow anything to get going offensively. I do think it's close. I do think it's competitive, and the Cowboys do have a chance to win. But I think Washington wins 17-13 in a low-scoring game.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna go a different way just because I
Mhm.
think I have a lot of faith in Kellen Moore
Okay.
to take what this team struggled with the last time these two teams face each other and flip it around and use some of their aggressiveness against them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have the Cowboys winning 21-20 on a
Ooh,
nail biter.
it's a really close game.
Yeah, I think this defense, the Cowboys defense, gives them a chance in this game because they've played solid. The
Mm.
Vikings offense um, is pretty good when it needs to be. Kirk
Yeah,
Cousins kind of middle of the pack quarterback with Dalvin Cook, the best running back in the league.
really good wide receiver
One
duo.
of the
Yeah.
two of the
Mm.
better receivers in the league. So
Mm.
I think this defense is improving. I think Alex Smith is a little bit of a downgrade from Kyle Allen. And I just think that they're going to give him a chance. I think they've had some addition by subtraction. I think Demarcus Lawrence has been playing really well.
Yeah.
I think Randy Gregory's played, extremely well. So I think they'll be able. Leighton Vander Esch
Yeah.
has been so much better. So I think this defense gives them a chance. I think they actually score a touchdown this game. The defense does. So I think that helps with the scoring because I don't see this offense coming out and just beating up the Washington defense at all. So I think the Cowboys offense scores a touchdown or two, and the Cowboys defense either scores a touchdown or sets them up with a easy touchdown for the offense.
No, I think that all makes logical sense, and I do agree with a lot of what you said. This is more of I want to see if this team could put back to back,
Yeah.
consecutive
Oh,
good
I agree.
games together. Also, part of it, me deep down still hoping for a high draft pick, but all the what you said makes logical sense. I just need to see this team, like I said, kind of
All right.
put two games together.
We didn't even talk about it, but I think this team's going to come out and play some inspired football
Oh
this
yeah,
Sunday too, with
mm.
with what's going on with
Oh for
Marcus
sure.
Paul, the strength and conditioning coach. We obviously didn't even mention that because we don't
Mm.
really know the
Yeah, don't know
full
too much.
details, but Either way, it sounds like it was pretty serious thing that happened at the facility today, and I think being someone who's been around strength and conditioning coaches and in baseball more than football, but seen it in football as well, like those guys are really the heart and soul of a
For
coaching
sure.
staff.
Yeah.
You always see the position coach but those guys spend more time with those strength and conditioning coaches than anybody. Every morning, every off season, it's strength and conditioning. It's
Mm.
lifting weights. It's
Yeah,
getting
they're
your
around
body
them a
in shape.
lot. Yeah.
So I
Hmm.
think, and those guys are normally loud and very aggressive and want you to push yourself to the limits. And I think this team has a chance of coming out and being, pretty inspired and wanting to play hard for a guy that's pushed them to the limits for years. So,
Definitely agree with that.
well,
Mm.
cool. Let's cross our fingers. And the good thing about this season is can't really go, none of it can be but so bad because if you lose, great. If you win, great.
Yeah.
A win puts you closer to winning the division and winning, going to the playoffs, which you can never complain about.
Mm.
I just don't want to go 7-9 and miss the playoffs. But I think in this
Yeah.
division, you're probably if you win 6 or 7 games, there's a really good
I'd
chance
be
that
shocked
you're
if they win 6 games. I'd be shocked if they're not
yeah.
representing the NFC
I think
East.
you I think you could get it done with 5 too, honestly, with how
Yeah. No,
with
for
how bad
sure.
it is.
Mm.
But let's get out of here. I want to wish everybody happy holidays. Have a great day, and let's root on the Cowboys, and hopefully they can pull out another win and get them one step closer to the NFC East title, because that would be one way or the other. That would be fun. So
Yeah.
we're gonna cross our fingers for that. And if they lose, not but so mad at that either. So
Yeah.
we will see you guys next week. Enjoy your holidays, and we'll see you guys next week. We are Talking the Star.